Hey, so you know like how right-wingers are opposed to multiculturalism? Like they don't like the idea of having like multiple different cultures in the same spot, and in particular their spot. Well, and you know of course that the left-wingers do sort of support multiculturalism and want there to be like multiple cultures in the same spot. And so what these right-wing people propose instead is the concept called ethnopluralism. Ethnopluralism is like multiculturalism, except instead of having multiple cultures in the same spot, you have one single culture in each spot, but lots of multiple cultures over the entire surface of the planet or multiple planets or whatever. So the idea is that you have like in biodiversity there's this term alpha diversity and beta diversity. So alpha diversity is when you have lots of species in the same locale, whereas beta diversity is the when you've got lots of change in species between different locales, right? So basically what left wingers like is alpha diversity, and what right wingers like is beta diversity. And in fact, well, right wingers want uh, uh, like alpha diversity of one, and they want just sort of a high beta diversity. And meanwhile, left wingers want both high alpha and beta diversity, in the sense that they still do support the idea that there would be sort of different cultures in different locations as well. Um, and so basically, to me, that is all wrong. Like it's all wrong. Whether the right wing thing, the left wing thing is all wrong, because for me, fundamentally, a culture, like what does a culture stem from? It stems from a certain like norms and customs, and like if your culture is different from another, like it means that you're being conformist. Because if you were just doing your own thing, then like everybody would be like, think about it this way. If let's say like in France they like coffee and in England they like tea, right? So now if everybody in England's drinking tea and everybody in France is drinking coffee, it's because they're being conformist. It's because everyone is doing like everyone else in their own in their own country, in their own culture, right? Which means that they're actually being brainwashed, or in some instances they're actually being oppressed. Basically, they're like literally succumbing to peer pressure and not really daring, even though they don't realize it even. But they fundamentally, it's that they don't dare sort of think outside the box of their own culture, and so that's a problem, because I very much support doing things just your own way in an individual fashion. And if you did that, well, you might find, like, maybe you could say that humans innately, like, if they just completely had no prior conditioning, maybe 60% of humans would favor tea. I'm just saying this sort of just out of nothing, just inventing. But you could, for instance, say that 60% of humans would favor tea and 40% of humans would favor coffee. And so without this phenomenon of conformism and of peer pressure and all that, you would see that both in France and England, well, in England you'd have 60% of people drinking tea and 40% of people drinking coffee, and in France you would likewise have 60% of people drinking tea and 40% of people drinking coffee, and that's how it should be. So there would be diversity between individuals, so but not between different cultures. It's not like the 40% that are drinking coffee, or like the 40% of French people in the culture, and then the 60% who drink tea, or like 60% of British culture people. No, it's just 60% of individual people who just do things because that is their own individual unique taste, right? Um, and that's how it should be. And so basically, the fact that there are different cultures indicates that people are just being stupid and conformist. In the same way that the fact that there are different religions in different locales is also an indication of that. That's an example. That's a very telling example of that. Um, and yeah, so what I'm saying is that cultures are inherently wrong because they're inherently conformist, and inherently, as a result, they're inherently irrational and a stifling of individuality. Um, and so what I advocate for is neither high alpha or beta diversity of culture. I advocate for a complete like absence of culture. So there would be like a diversity of zero of culture, and instead you just have differences between individuals, and there would be, as a result, a relatively high difference in trivial things such as tastes, like for food and stuff. On the other hand, there'd be relatively high alpha diversity of that. There would be zero beta diversity of that, because everywhere you go, you would have similar proportions in these tastes. So there'd be high individual diversity, but the same everywhere. And meanwhile, for when it comes to things like ideas of right and wrong, moral norms, there would be no diversity. Everybody would agree on the same things, and that's because, well, I consider that there are truly universal norms, and we can actually determine that there is a ground truth, that there is a real truth. And to me, that involves like the three pillars of ethics, of beneficence, equity, and freedom. And so that is something that really shouldn't be contested, and it's something that shouldn't have people doubting, or some people opposing. These three concepts should be accepted by everyone, and then there are all sorts of specific laws that could stem from those concepts, and people shouldn't really debate those laws either. So in lots of fundamental moral principles, there should be absolutely no diversity between individuals. And so that's that. And so what I'm saying is that both multiculturalism and ethnopluralism is about it's about having these cultures, and as a result, it's about supporting conformism and supporting peer pressure and suppression of individuality and just oppression. And meanwhile, so what I'm also thinking is that this kind of correlates with the whole nationalism issue, because nationalism is really about promoting your people and of course your culture kind of at the expense of others. Basically, that's what it is fundamentally. And in fact, when people talk about even things, when they try to make nationalism seem like a good thing, they talk about sovereignty and self-determination and stuff. And again, all these things like multiculturalism, ethnopluralism, sovereignty, and self-determination, all these things are about basically reinforcing, perpetuating tribalist thinking, and precisely again with all the issues that I mentioned, all that kind of anti-individual thinking, and also fundamentally a divisive thinking, because precisely then that kind of mentality will naturally create a us versus them, and will create sentiments of animosity towards the other, even if it's not intended like that. I know that all these right-wingers, they say we want ethnopluralism, and it's fine that different countries exist in different places and stuff, and different cultures exist in different places, but in reality, at the same time, then they will support policies that benefit their people at the expense of other people, and if they go too far, that will lead to war. And in fact, it's that very mindset that has caused pretty much all wars, okay, and has caused millions, countless unnecessary deaths, okay, and the majority of unnecessary deaths, in fact, and the majority of self-inflicted deaths, and just the majority of the basically this kind of mindset of both conformism and repressive social norms and the tribalism that goes with it has been responsible for the majority of just suffering of our species, self-inflicted suffering, and what people call, sometimes the quote human condition, and that is just what I call idiocy, what I call orc-ishness, what I call subhumanism, and what I've also been using with the N-word, but that now I'm not really daring to use since it got me banned 7 days on Twitch, and again, it's that, okay? And it doesn't matter if you try to make it seem nice with words like self-determination and ethnopluralism. It's extremely harmful, and it's literally responsible for most suffering. So we've got to I really want to make people understand how harmful this is, and I want to make people understand that we absolutely have to just eliminate this. We have to eliminate all this mindset of both conformism and tribalism and just culturism, right? And anti-individualism. So yeah, that's that.